Hey everybody, welcome back. Look at this. It's a new wheel. I've gotten tired of just reviewing my NES games in alphabetical order, and so I took all of my vintage games from the Atari 2600 era up to the PS1 era, and I threw them on here. Now, granted, there's some that are not on here. I didn't put my Intellivision or Vectrex because Intellivision requires a specific controller, and Vectrex is best viewed on a vector monitor. So yeah, those are just hard to get screen capture and whatnot. But the ones that I can get good screen capture of are up here. Let's spin the wheel. Let's find out which vintage game I'm going to review, because I like doing a Steam game and a vintage game every week. Let's do a vintage one. Oh my God. Oh, what a draw. All right. We are going to do E.T. the Extra Terrestrial. That is the game. The landfill special. Anyway, give me a second and I will be back when the game is ready to play. Okay, so we can't even get into the gameplay of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is the full name of both the movie and the game. But never mind that. We can't even get into it without going through a little bit of history first. Some of you may know this history. I will try to be brief. So, in 1982, Steven Spielberg released E.T. the Extraterrestrial, a movie which, for reasons I will never understand, took the world by storm. Like, I don't like it. I don't think it's a very good movie. I don't enjoy it. Quite frankly, I hated it as a kid, and I don't enjoy it now. Sorry. I apologize. Sorry. But it took the world by storm and became, at the time, the highest grossing movie ever, passing 1977's Star Wars, which is a vastly superior film. Like, just think about it. If I said right now, we are going to sit down and watch one of two movies, either 1977's Star Wars, which has come to be known as Star Wars A New Hope, or E.T. Which one do you choose? Star Wars every time? Exactly. Also in 1982, Atari rushed the video game tie-in to E.T. to market, creating a trend of awful rushed video game tie-ins, which continues to this very day. By the way, this was not the first video game tie-in for the Atari 2600. It was not the first video game tie-in the world had ever seen. There were some that were pretty good, like the Star Wars video game. Oh man, the sit-down Star Wars cabinet in the arcade, forget about it. Excellent. But this was notable because of what a big cultural impact E.T. had, in spite of it being a movie that I don't enjoy. But yeah, they rushed it to market and it was terrible. In 1983, the oversaturated video game market crashes, with sales in the United States plummeting to a mere $100 million after the previous year's $3.8 billion in video game sales revenue. Many see E.T. as either an example or the actual reason. Those who think E.T. is the sole reason why the video game market crashed are very short-sighted. It's not the only reason. The market was oversaturated. There were too many games coming from too many places. You may remember, or not. I don't know. I don't know you. We've never met. I don't know what's in your brain. But there was a Chase the Chuckwagon game made by Purina, the dog food company. Yeah, there was Plaque Attack, which was supported by the American Dental Association, where you brush teeth to fight off plaque. There were just games coming from everywhere, and some of them were just so legitimately awful and just rushed to market. But because E.T. was such a big movie and such a terrible game, many people like to pin this failure on E.T. solely. It's not the only reason the market crashed, but it is a part of it, and it's emblematic of why it crashed. Anyway, around this time, an urban legend starts that thousands of unsold copies of E.T. were buried in a landfill in New Mexico. In 1985, of course, the video game market rebounds because a former playing card company, which we know as Nintendo, launched a new console which they sold in the toy section, not in the electronics section, which is how they got away with it, because a lot of people wouldn't even put a video game console on the shelves because they were like, oh, they won't sell. No one will buy these. Nintendo sold it in the toy section, and they very smartly, unlike Atari, which had gorgeous cover art, but then you play the game and it's these terrible pixels and whatnot, Nintendo put the actual sprites on their games, which made it so that people weren't disappointed when they play the games. And they gave us the greatest pack-in game of all time, which is Super Mario Bros. / Duck Hunt. The best. It's the best. What pack-in game is better than that? There is none. Thank you very much. There is none. Anyway, in 2008, everybody remembers this. I married a woman whose entire family argues that E.T. is not a bad game, but is, in their collective opinion, quite fun to play. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people who feel this way about E.T. You take some nostalgia, you take, the fact that some people actually read the manual, which I did in order to capture the footage that you're going to see, which I still had no idea what I was doing, even though I read the manual. But yeah. My wife and her entire family are like, no, E.T., it's a good game. In 2014, a group of highly motivated nerds went to the storied landfill in New Mexico and actually found the site where over 700,000 Atari cartridges, not all of which were E.T., but many of which were E.T., were buried. And it proved the legend and cemented E.T.'s legacy as one of the worst things to ever happen to video gaming. Whether you blame it for the crash or not, whether you see it as emblematic of the crash or not, it is still regarded as one of the worst tie-ins ever rushed to market, and is kind of hard to argue with that. Anyway, history aside, let's get to the game. Okay, so 1982's E.T. for the Atari 2600. Here we go. As you can see, the E.T. sprite looks vaguely kind of like E.T. sort of a little bit. And he has energy. And every time he takes a step, it subtracts 2 energy from his total. What you have to do is you have to go around. You have to collect all the little bits of candy. I think there are 7 of them. You have to collect all the pieces of the phone. There are 3 or 4 of them. There's a flower that you have to bring back to life. And then there are symbols on the map which tell you what you can do. And I never remembered which is what and what is which. and generally had a hard time doing anything in the game, even though I had read, I don't know if it was the official manual, but it is a manual that says how to win at ET. I found it on Atari Mania, which is one of the great resources for Atari gaming out there in the world. Anyway, so the symbols on the map tell you which way you can. There's like a dash move that you can do that is wildly ineffective most of the time. It's hard to pull off and know where you're going or how to get it done. Maybe other people are better at it than me. I did it a couple of times, but every time it came as a little bit of a surprise. ET will fall into pits constantly. Sometimes as soon as you enter a screen, you'll fall into a pit because you didn't know where the pit was in relation to the screen. The map of ET is cube shaped. It's kind of like, you know how Legend of Zelda, the original NES Legend of Zelda, you know, there were separate screens and then they all fit together as part of a larger map. That's the same thing happening here, except for when you actually look at it in the manual, it is like an unfolded cube. Except for when you actually play it, it's like the cube all folded up together. And so you have to think in cube dimension where the crap you were going. And it's hard to remember one screen from the other. There are two bad guys who are out to get you. And one of them is the FBI agent and the other is a doctor. You know, the doctors who were trying to study ET. And for some reason, I found that horrifically scary when I was a kid. It was my least favorite part of the entire movie, all of the medical stuff. Anyway, so the doctor will come and kidnap you and take you to the Roman numeral 3 for some reason. And there's also a house on that screen. Is it Elliot's house? I have no idea. Elliot is not there. You really can't do anything other than just walk around that screen. The FBI agent is supposedly your worst enemy, but he doesn't really do anything as far as I can tell. Other than, you know, I think he takes your stuff. If you have been collecting phone parts and Reese Pieces. Yeah, I think that's about how he does. Anyway. There's a point on the map where you can call Elliot if you've collected the Reese's Pieces, and he will come to you and help convert them into energy so that you can complete the rest of the game. There is you're trying to call home, so you have to put all the pieces of the phone together, and then there is a randomly generated spot on the map where you are supposed to make that call from, and then you make the call once you've collected all the pieces of the phone, and then the spaceship lands in the exact spot where it drops you off at the very beginning of the game. So exactly like the movie, right? I mean, E.T. fell in so many pits, and just so many pits. And then he had to like crane his neck to fly. You know how he does, how he cranes his neck and then he flies around. Yeah, exactly like the movie. So much like the movie. I'm just totally reminded of the movie. Anyway, I played it. I played it and played it. I really, really tried to get a sense for like, okay, if you're a kid in 1983 and you are playing this game and you are trying to enjoy it as much as possible, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing that's making you think, oh, this is fun? Or as my experience has been, oh, this is terrible and I don't like it and I don't understand what's happening most of the time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't No. I tried. I really tried to enjoy it. Oh, also, if you die, Elliot will come and revive you twice. He will do that twice. And then if you die again after that, too bad, so sad, back to the title screen, end of the game for you. That's it and that's all. So, yeah, it's a weird game. It is a weird little game. You know, actually, hold up. Let me read you a little thing. This is from the manual, the How to Win at ET manual. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go. Introduction. Atari's new ET cartridge is billed as the first emotional video game. That's quote-unquote emotional video game. And it is. The object of the ET game is an emotional objective, not so much score-oriented as it is goal-oriented. Now, if you're old enough, you'll remember video games used to be all about setting high scores. That used to be it. All you wanted was that high score, especially in arcades where you could put in your name as ASS, you know, you put in your initials, everyone's initials were ASS. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it used to be high score chasing. And E.T., flipped the video game world on its head with an emotional objective. It's not really an emotional objective. It's a find, collect, complete objectives, which is not emotional and also was not the first video game to do this. So, I would venture to say that Adventure for the Atari 2600 is a much more emotional, objective type of game. In that, you know, you're going around, you're slaying dragons, you're solving puzzles and finding your way through mazes and eventually to the final objective in the game. Is very goal oriented and I'm much more emotionally invested in it. But yeah, back to the script here, what they're saying. Okay. You want to get E.T. safely on his spaceship heading back to his home planet. This is stuff of the heart, and a strange subject matter for a video game. Oh, you got it, brother. It's definitely strange. It's absolutely strange. If nothing else, it forces you to change the way you think about video gaming. And it did. I mean, it crashed the market, or was emblematic of what crashed the market. It was not the wild success that people hoped it would be. And because it was rushed to market and they just kind of like slapped something together that was vaguely ET-ish, that's what you get. I also love the fact that in all the official materials, they have to call the little black dots, because they are little black dots. They aren't, you know, yellow and orange, because they can't call them Reese's Pieces because they don't have that license. Anyway, they just call them candy, and they're little black dots, and you go around and collect them, and then you fall in a pit and hope there's a piece of a phone in there. 99% of the time there's not, and then you're gonna crane your neck and try and fly out of the pit, only to fall back into the pit again and again and again. It is frustrating and confusing, and I don't like it. My wife likes it. Her family likes it. Oh, you don't remember it? Oh, yeah. I have had conversations. Sorry. Sidebar time. I've had conversations about this game with your family, and they have sworn to me, especially Mary, is like, no, this is a great game. I love this game. Anyway. Okay, so maybe my wife specifically does not, have as much of a connection to it, but her family does. I know that for sure. I have talked with them about it because I brought up the whole landfill thing once, and they were like, "What? Landfill? But that's such a fun game." And I was like, actually, people hate this game. But you know what? If you go on Atari Mania today, you will find that there are people who will still say, like, hey, I played this game back in the day. I played it now. It's not as bad as everybody says. It's, it's a game that was kind of rushed to market and maybe wasn't all that it could have been, but it's not completely horrible, is what some people will say. I would like to disagree with them, but also I will not say that this is the worst Atari 2600 game out there. There are worse Atari 2600 games out there. The Atari 2600, there were just a bajillion games. I mean, this is why when Nintendo came to town, that official Nintendo seal of quality, the fact that they would only let developers develop a certain number of games per year, and Nintendo would kind of stick their nose in it and make sure, like, are you making good games for our little system? Because we only want good games. Yeah, it was Nintendo's quality control that made this thing happen. Nolan Bushnell of Atari, for all of his all the great things that he did, and there were some great things that he did. I'm a total Atari fanboy, so you're not gonna catch me talking too much trash about Nolan Bushnell, but he was very much like, oh yeah, Purina, you want to make a game for the Atari? Do it. You won't. And so everybody was making games for the Atari, and by the end it just got absurd, and people couldn't trust that what they were buying was quality. And because you get this beautiful cover art, and then you would pop the cartridge in and get a whole bunch of, pixels and squares and boxes, and you don't know what the crap's happening on screen, people were turned off by that. And, it's not a surprise. So E.T., while not the sole cause of the video game crash of 1983, is definitely a big part of that history, and people saying that it's emblematic, that it's a symbol of why the market crashed. Yeah, I can stand behind that. Anyway, let me put a final score on this. Okay, so E.T. for the Atari 2600. It's not the worst game on the 2600. It's not the worst movie tie-in game of all time, but it's up there. It's pretty bad. So, what am I giving it final score-wise? It is getting a 1 out of a possible 10 sprites from the Wayne's World video game for the Super Nintendo, which is, in and of itself, quite a terrible movie tie-in that was released several years after E.T. So, the legend continues. People keep making terrible movie tie-in games, and we keep buying them, which is why they keep making them. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, people. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.